in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity. Tomorrow never certain. What dwells behind the curtain? The face of evil lurking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
Studies show that regular exercisers earn more money on average than their more sedentary co-workers. 6% more for men and 10% more for women. An interesting difference there, almost double. Okay, the fitter the woman, the richer the woman. The fitter the man, the richer the man, it seems. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder. My name is Ike. Go ahead and click that like button. Click the subscribe button if you haven't already. Share the stream. Click the bell button twice. Dr. Thunder, how are you doing?
I'm all right, man. How you doing?
Not bad at all. So this is interesting that 6% more money, okay, is earned by regular exercisers. Same job, right? Same job, same silly cubicles, okay? And the people who are more sedentary earn 6% less if they're men, but 10% less if they're women, which immediately goes to the halo effect side of things. In other words, like, it's more important if a woman looks good. If a woman looks good, you can see that she'll probably reap more benefits out of it than just a man looking good, I guess. Okay. But that's an interesting one there. Now let's start. Okay, before we go to the obvious internal aspects and talk about discipline and stamina and strength, whatever it may be, okay? And talk about the external aspects such as the halo effect, which we were just talking about, right? Let's interrogate the whole hypothesis a little bit here. The hypothesis saying that, there's some kind of a relationship between health, or shall we say fitness and money. Is it possible that the relationship between fitness and money can be explained by the fact that these are things that people desire to get, and they typically serve the same kind of hedonic purpose? They're going to satisfy the same kinds of, shall we say, ego centers, if you will. Okay, you want to be a healthy, good-looking, successful guy out there. Okay, and they're all kind of like the same thing. They come with a certain kind of status associated with them. So someone who is pursuing one and is good at aiming and getting one is probably pursuing the other one and is going to be good at getting the other one. How much of this, obviously, so I'm asking a quantitative question, asking us to speculate as to how heavy of a factor do you think what I just described is here?
Yeah, I mean, if physical appearance is a value, then if you have a more appealing physical appearance, then human nature is such that the tendency will be for a disproportionate number of folks to get a big head about it. That doesn't mean that everyone has to, but those that are sort of more susceptible to that are going to be more susceptible to it. That it's going to happen in greater numbers. So I do think that now, okay, so let me back up a little bit from that too, because it seems that these days, okay, oh, well, maybe I don't have to necessarily back up, because I think the reason why, some of these sort of, body positivity and all of this seems to be creating some of the bad personality traits in women that aren't as fit as the women that are fit. And because they know they look good, they don't have to just, they don't have to be nice to you. They're going to get people approaching them all day long. It's not going to be the last person. So maybe the case is that since there's a community that is sort of propping up and celebrating plus size folks, maybe that's sort of creating that same sort of, letting it go to your head sort of effect.
Okay. Now, still doesn't address.
And of course that's like a favorite, manosphere, like whipping boy. That whole thing.
It doesn't address the question though. On the table still remains. You want to be. You say there's a relationship between fitness and money. Somebody says, right? That's the hypothesis on the table, and that fitter people are richer people. You ask, what's the chicken or the egg? You're wondering, are they rich because they're fit? Are they fit because they're rich? Is it a feedback loop? Is it all of the above? And then somebody comes and says, look, I have a factor here, which I think that pursuit of wealth and pursuit of fitness are very similar in the sense that they're very similar to, in the sense that, well, number one, they require the same certain kinds of things in terms of stamina and discipline, but there's a certain kind of ego satisfaction that is going on with people who do that and want to, regardless of whatever else may be going on in their life. This is no judgment, okay? We're just kind of saying statistically, people are pursuing health, okay, and they're pursuing wealth. The one that's going to be good at one is generally going to be good at the other. So if you find a fit person at the finish line of fitness and wealth, don't be surprised. It's not because the two things are related. It's just that this person is the type of person that's going to be chasing up these things anyways. It's like, they like good food and they like good wine. Generally, these two things go together. They're satisfying certain hedonic pleasures by being fit and also by being wealthy, having the status that comes along with it. How heavy is this factor again in explaining the correlation between these two things?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's a factor, and my point was, on the more sort of hedonic level, that physical appearance is sort of its own motivation because of how it sort of greases the wheels. It people are paying attention to you. You can get away with more stuff. I mean, we know this is it's like a cliche. A really beautiful woman that's fit, she can get away with a lot more stuff than one that is not fit and not beautiful. They call it pretty privilege, right? And so, I was talking on that level, but yeah, certainly, I think that, yes, I think both. I think that there is something in common about someone that is in pursuit of money, in pursuit of maybe some of the finer things, as it were. There's a tendency for those things to travel together. So I'm not surprised.
In pursuit of the finer things, and also they turn out to be fit. Okay, they're the CEO and they go biking every weekend, and you're like, okay, cool. You're not surprised,
Yeah, no, totally not surprised by that. And the drive, I think that the discipline that they have, I think it's a direct translation. I know in my own life, there are several things that seem to accompany each other. And when things are really going well, like when my diet is better,
Mm-hmm.
My consistency in the gym is better.
You put that
My
Hardee's down, or the or Car's Jr., whatever it is.
my productivity is better. My meditation prayer life is better. My spiritual discipline in general is better. All of these things seem to be, there's a synergistic relationship. They seem to
Mm-hmm.
to help each other. In the sort of Christian perspective, you've got the spirit, the soul, and the body, and when you are adequately catering to the needs of each, they there's a real synergy. They really worked well together. Besides the fact that when you are working hard and all of those other things are firing, you sleep better, and then when you sleep better, you're more clear. Um, so, and it'll take less time to do the same, amount of work. And you've got the
Mm-hmm.
healthy body, healthy mind. All of that stuff seems to work together.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, when one of those things starts to get out of alignment, it's much more likely that it'll be a chain reaction. A bunch of things will just start falling off. And then
Okay,
I have to
so
sort of regroup and then try to get everything back going. So
energy, focus, stamina, right? The brain function, the stress relief aspect of the exercise in and of itself, right? It is necessary if you're doing anything at all to be able to exercise. It's almost like a biological function. The body wants to do it. And you were talking about your personal life, right? And things being in synergy, and you notice that when things are going well, a number of things are going well at the same time, and that it goes along with you being fit and so on and so forth. Like I remember also, like beyond just on the productivity realm, if I look back to certain periods of my life when I was like a top, peak physical shape, also went with like, I hate to be trivial and use a word like happiness, but yeah, things were kind of light, and it's like, and quite literally, okay, even in real
yeah.
time, okay, I'm going through a diet right now. There's something about when you're on day 4 of that fast, and you're now in calorie deficit, and you get those shakes or whatever. People experience it in different ways, okay, and when you get past that, there's a certain lightness that you, when you wake up the next day, you're like, all that pizza dough is out of your system, and it just feels better. You just feel a lot better. And I have noticed, anyways, the study that was done, well, there are 2 studies that were done, okay? Well, a number of studies have been done regarding fitness and its relationship to money, okay? Which is our topic today, ladies and gentlemen. Again, as you come and click that like button, this is Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder. We're talking about fitness and money. It turns out that richer people are fitter people, generally speaking. And also, even within the same group, in the same crew, in the cubicles together, the ones whom exercise regularly doing the same work earn 6% more if they're men. They earn 10% more if they're women, okay, if they exercise more. And there have been separate studies done about, let's say, the halo effect. We know about the halo effect. That's why we don't elect fat, ugly presidents, okay, for example. That part cannot be discounted, okay? That part of, the external aspect. In other words, we've talked about the focus, the stamina, the energy, the stress relief, the brain function, the sleep. All that part is very important, right? But also the ways in which you'll be received, the ease with which people will follow you, okay? I may have to do it just how cut you happen to be. And it just is what it is, right? Like Kevin Samuel says, you got to pick your struggle. You can't have too many struggles, okay? And you can't shun certain advantages. Like, oh, if I'm fit, people will listen to me more. Therefore, I'm gonna be like, no, I'm not gonna be fit to spite the universe or something like that. I don't think it's a fair reaction for people to actually react positively when I don't smell like crap, for example. You don't do that. Like you try to smell good, you try to look relatively decent. So why not be fit too? Why is that now the stretch? It will be. But anyways, I was just trying to go on the personal level there because you started it talking about in my personal life when I looked at periods of my life and also when I look to individual months, even weeks, and then compare how much exercise, how hydrated was I, how much sleep did I have. It's night and day when it comes to number one, being productive, and then also enjoying the fruits of the production, right? Shout out to the same Taleb, and then I'll let you fire back
and
here.
you're not willing to accept mistreatment and stuff by others. I mean, you have more confidence. You're, somebody's doing some things that you're like, you know what, I'm gonna call this out. It's just better, and it's just better in every way because it's like if you know that you could be doing things significantly better, we can always be doing things better. You never really arrive. But if you know that you're actually pushing the envelope, pressing towards a particular thing, it's going to make you less willing to deal with certain kinds of foolishness. And that sort of makes sense. I mean, if you think, as like an Olympian or something is getting ready for, they're peaking, they're getting to the edge where they're becoming one of the most fit, best at their event of anybody in the world or anybody ever. There's less tolerance. There's less stuff that you can let go. You can't do that. So as you get closer to those peak points, you have to require more of other people. And I think that's another side of that whole it's lonely at the top sort of thing. There's not as many people at the top of their game like that. And they must, by definition, be more strict, less forgiving, as it were. So,
And if you look at that cubicle we were talking about earlier, maybe it's just in negotiations for salaries that makes that partially there's a negotiation for salaries aspect that accounts for the difference. And people who are not going to be taking crap, people who have more self-confidence, people who quote unquote know their worth.
right.
In addition to having the halo effect when they walk into the room, okay, they're going to maybe perhaps take a stronger position and be confident and have the whole package work for them. Like the whole sales and marketing thing is working for them. They come in, they look good, they actually have the inner confidence, and they're not going to take crap. So it all works out in their favor in the end. And I think that the fact that that women, fitter women actually earn more, the gap is different. Again, shows us that. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm thinking about that. And this is all speculation.
Of course.
At some level, most things are speculation. But this in particular is particularly speculative. What I'm about to say. And that is, I wonder if there is, it's okay. So it seems to me that, so we already know that though Americans, for instance, we have a sort of an obesity problem, an overweight problem. Okay. But of the people that are overweight, a higher percentage of them are women than men. So if you're a fit woman, that makes you part of a smaller percentage of the total number of women, let alone in your discipline, doing the kind of job that you do. So then there would be a disproportionate benefit. So maybe that's why we're talking 10% rather than 6%. And then you have the whole other thing, which is obviously, again, when you get closer to being at your best, you require more of people around you, and so possibly maybe that makes them less agreeable, which of course we have said. I mean, we just did a show, Case Closed, called Women. What is it? Women do not
Don't.
want,
Yes.
or they do not want equality. And we talked a little bit about we kind of touched on the wage gap, but actually the show, I think, was at a higher altitude than a lot of the usual talking points. So go and check that out when you get a chance. But that's one of the things that is constantly cited, is that one of the reasons why, if you can say that women make 75 cents on the dollar. So by the way, the pushback against the supposed gender pay gap is not to say that there isn't an actual pay gap. There is a pay gap, but you must disaggregate the numbers, and you need to look at things in a specific sense. When you evaluate apples to apples, then some of these studies actually show that women tend to make a little bit more, apples to apples. Same amount of continuous work without a break, same amount of experience, same amount of education, same amount of all of that kind of stuff. When you weigh them apples for apples, you tend to have the same sort of things. But the thing is that people are different, and they tend to choose different things based on their orientation. So if you're a woman, women tend to like jobs that prioritize people and that associate with people, and men are much more willing to do jobs and work longer hours, by the way, that focus on things, right? So, but what it is that I'm pulling this back around to say, if one of the issues is the agreeableness issue, and the tendency is, if you're more on the top of your game and everything's really happening, maybe what we're saying is that is making them maybe less agreeable, which also makes them willing to fight for more money. So I just think it's a interesting point.
Oh yes, 100%. There are many circles here, okay? Many things that are influencing each other, going in a vicious circle or virtuous circle, whatever it may be. Many chickens and eggs and whatever. Now, in terms of the discipline aspect, okay? Do you think, because if you just remove it from the energy, the stamina, the clarity, all those things that, let's say, has to do with the physical body, okay? Do you think there's anything such as, I am exercising my discipline? Like, discipline is a muscle, right? So would go this kind of argument, right? Because if you're going to say that exercise helps with my discipline, that means, okay, because it's a discipline, then the more types of regimented discipline type things you do, the bigger your discipline muscle gets. Do you buy this kind of argument that there is such a thing as a discipline muscle, that your exercise, that you're actually training, hence you can use it for your saxophone practice and every other thing, and also your exercise helps you with that discipline, or that's just crap? It's more of the fact that it's just your body that it's working out. There is no discipline that you're exercising.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I think that I'm not sure where the separation between this discipline talk we're having now and this idea that people refer to the momentum thing, like once you develop a routine, like 28 days of something consistently, then now you're rolling, so how much of it is quote unquote this momentum, and how much of it is actually you're better you're actually a better person. And because you're a better person, there still is no momentum, but you're able to just do it anyway.
Mhm.
Right? So is it the discipline muscle getting stronger, and then therefore things that are difficult don't seem as difficult? Or is it that maybe you're not actually getting any better discipline wise, but it's easier because the ball is rolling now?
Mhm.
You've got you've got this momentum on your side.
Yeah.
You probably you know what I'm going to say about the momentum thing. You already know what I'm going to say about that. But I'm also a little skeptical. I don't know that I want to totally buy the discipline muscle thing either. So,
So D is reinforcing, or what D put on the chat there that I highlighted, can be used to reinforce the discipline muscle argument by talking about delayed gratification. That whatever you do to help this thing called delayed gratification, that your exercise, and that I think we can more clearly see as a capacity. That there is such a thing as just being a complete simp, where you're simping for cake, or I don't know, simping for white women in the chat, whatever it may be. And you can't control yourself. But then you learn delayed gratification and you become less of a simp, right? Does that help buttress this discipline muscle argument?
I think in my leaning, I think I would lean more on if we have not created a false dichotomy by suggesting that there's some sort of mutual exclusivity between this discipline muscle position and the momentum position, then I would tend to lean on the discipline side, developing discipline side. And I do think that the delayed gratification point, pointed out by one of the aforementioned white women, would yeah, I think that that's a good point. The delayed gratification. Yeah.
Excellent. So let's get a little bit more into this discipline thing again, because ladies and gentlemen, it seems to be that richer counties are fitter counties. Okay. And it's not because of food deserts, okay? Apparently, Dr. Fenn. Oh, come on. I'll bring some kind of county healthcare local worker that'll convince you that food deserts do exist, and they're a scourge they're urban blight, okay, in our cities.
That's
and
right.
It is a
That's
travesty
the reason
that we're not doing anything.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
why we're morbidly obese.
We're
both broke. We're both broke and eating ourselves to death at the same time. Yes.
The broke urban people are fatter counties or poorer counties. You have Marin County and over here, let's say in San Francisco and stuff like that, where people are pretty fit. And we have started out by looking at some of the obvious self-selective aspects, which basically says, hey, you know what? If you are a striver and you strive to the top of CEO-dom, but you also strive to the top of fitness, I'm not so surprised, right? You're a striver. So that's one aspect. And then we also say, you know what?
Rogan.
There you go. Within the social sphere as well, there are those people whom are after status and after looking good, okay? And being fit and having money both make you actually look good. And we cannot discount that as far as human motivations. People out there are trying to look good, okay? Don't be fooled. Okay?
Says the guy with the white suit with the black lapels.
I'm just saying, people are out there trying to look good. So That is a so when you see somebody trying to look good by being successful and also trying to look good by being fit, like, okay, cool. I'm not surprised that you're the same person. But then we also go into the internal aspects in terms of, okay, we do know that the body for me is the bottom of the pyramid, right? Whenever anything is wrong, I always go to the base. Okay. Before I start thinking, did I, let's say, for example, you just feel this kind of strange anxiousness, anxiety, or you're a little irritable, whatever it may be, something is kind of off. Before I start thinking, oh, what did I do wrong? Or is there a deadline I'm trying to meet, or blah, 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 or trying to, I don't know, take coffee, I go to the base always. How's the body doing today? I remember how hydrated I am, and there are easy ways to check. Okay, you can check your lips, you'll know how hydrated you are. Remember the last time you urinated, you'll know how hydrated you are. And okay, boom, there you go, Dr. Thunder. You're taking your sip of the water. I always got Pellegrinos and Perriers on deck. Okay, I got my receipts. Okay, so always checking that to make sure that is on good. And then also I'll check my breathing and then the heart rate, because you're sometimes 10 burpees and then you come back and you're like, you know what, I'm ready for this meeting, right? And rather than thinking it was some, you know what I mean, right? Like, I got this. Rather than thinking it was some other kind of thing that you were going to start psychologizing and writing a book about it. It's like, dude, maybe you just needed to do 10 burpees, sip some water, and you'll be fine. Okay. So,
and let's not forget the psychological, what am I want to say, advantage or of doing something difficult as a way to sort of convince yourself that anything else that you're doing is, oh, this is nothing, right? So if it's one thing that I tell my students, and though I have preferred an afternoon time for working out, I have I've been on a hiatus from the gym. I'm sort of nursing something going on with my left arm. I've got this thing on here. This weird thing. I've got like a weird tendon popping thing, and it's creating some burning and issues with my wrist and stuff. But if you go to the gym in the morning, then, especially if it's a challenging workout, like, for instance, I hate leg day. I go to the gym, I kill my legs, it's a struggle. I didn't want to do it in the first place. I get out of there. The rest of the day is a breeze because I just did something really difficult. So in addition to this idea of, you were talking about the burpees as a way to get your blood moving and your heart beating and the synapses perhaps firing quicker, efficiency. So it was almost like revving your engine. But there's also this sort of, I just did something difficult and there's no way that what I'm about to do is going to be any more difficult. Let's go. There's that kind of aspect of it too. So.
Yeah, 100%. And, there is a certain kind of, there's a certain kind of distinction. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, where are we? We are in the internal aspect of the fitness. We know that there's an external aspect too, whereby there's something called the halo effect, whereby you're not electing ugly, fat politicians, generally speaking. Okay. Madeleine Albright was not elected. So moving on. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. Okay, I was not elected. But there's that again, the halo effect, the fact that people will do certain things for people whom look good and all that kind of stuff. You're gonna get the job, you're gonna do better at the interview, blah blah blah, gonna get the raise. But we're in this internal aspect here and getting into the more subtle aspect of it. And you talking about you getting that pump and then going in and ready to take on things, ready to conquer, rather than putting artificial dopamine or chemical in your head. You just do something that's more natural. Okay. And then you go out there and you conquer. It's interesting that I noticed, and then we may move on so that we don't get too deep into some kind of completely abstract point here. When you say things happen, for example, sometimes I tend to emphasize that, okay, the locus of control is in your body. That, okay, no, focus on your body, and if you find it there, then you can control it. You point out that, okay, even further, it starts from your brain, right? That it's all in your brain. Okay, why do you do that? Like, can you notice, like, when you, because here's what I imagine. I imagine that you're thinking like, okay, this is all in my brain. It's not serious. I'm just gonna power through it, right? It's all brain signals telling me nonsense. So I'm gonna power through it. Is that kind of what you're saying? Is that more your mode of operation?
It's interesting because I okay, so the signals are being received by your brain, and the and your brain is interpreting those signals as pain or as pleasure or as, you know, whatever's going on, you know, and adrenaline, for instance, you know, your brain is speeding your heart rate up, is doing all this. Okay, so let's if we just sort of table that. So one of the issues that I have with sort of westernized versions of Christianity is this tendency to create a sort of disembodied, sort of you know, you have to kill something to dissect it. You know, the whole analytical thing is great and is greatly facilitated by creating categories. But by studying things that way, you can sort of fool yourself into thinking that there's a separation when actually there is not. So for instance, spirit, soul, and body is an example of this. And though we can label attributes of the spirit, attributes of the body, attributes of the mind, you know, of the soul, mind and soul, I'm using the same way. We can list those attributes, but they don't exist outside of each other. There's, you know, there's no, you know, I know some folks are into ghosts and stuff like this. That's fine, but there's no real disembodied anything, and there's no, you know, they all require each other, and each of them are sort of evidence of the other. You know, like I wouldn't think of you as being a person or having a spirit if I didn't see your physical representation, right? So we're tied to this thing anyway. And so in that sense, I don't think that okay, so A Hill is saying is asking a question about the spirit not existing outside of the body. Okay, so you're asking a question that would lead me down like another path. What I'm talking about is, as we are right now, the spirit, the soul, and the body are of equal importance and are all equally us. This whole argument that the physical representation that you see of me, that's not the real me. I'm the person that's inside. I find that to be inherently problematic.
You gotta look at my soul. You know, I was, you know, yeah, sure. I just tried to betray you a few minutes ago and sell you out for 50 pieces of silver, but look at my eyes. It's really what's inside that matters. That's right. But also, so that the point is not lost, without necessarily having to make a theological point, the point that, as you put it, the having to kill something in order to dissect it, or you trying to study a watch and then you break it into 5,000 pieces in order to, and then you forget that you broke it. In other words, now you think all these different parts exist independently, and you forget that they all need to come together to form watch, and none of them make sense independent of each other. That's what you're talking
Right.
about. And it's a question of analysis, right? Lysis means to cut, and this lysis thing that we do is good. You say, hey, here's nature and here's nurture. In reality, we know there's no real difference between those things, right? But sometimes you actually start thinking, oh, there's something out there that just got nature, and this is just completely different from the nurturing that's going on, as though, yeah, come on, it's the same thing doing the nurturing and the nurturing, you know? That kind of a deal.
Yeah,
right?
one wouldn't exist without the other. So
Exactly. So, and you there, because we got here from this whole kind of brain versus body thing. And you were saying, you tabled earlier on the fact that you have signals that are coming from the brain that are hitting you and saying adrenaline, anxiety, or breathe faster, or whatever it may be. And that if you know that is just a brain thing, that gives you a certain kind of agency, perhaps, that gives you a certain kind of power over it. Is that again where you tend to go with that?
yeah, I mean, I think if you understand how something functions, the sort of job that each component of yourself has, what their job is, then usually I think having more information about the function of things, I think, is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are struggling with if you're having a particular issue, if you can sort of isolate the part of yourself that it's most affecting and or likely coming from. So I mean, we're talking about fitness, money. You make more money if you're fit. We're talking about this, right? And a signal that something's wrong with your body is if you're not fit, if you're fat, if you're obese, if you're if you can't get up and walk, if you go up a flight of steps and you have to take an extended break, that's a sign that something's wrong with you physically. That's not a sign that something is wrong with your brain. Well, maybe it's a sign that you only let yourself get that way, maybe because of some issue with your brain, as it were, right? But yeah, so being able to sort of isolate what aspect of yourself, so then it helps you to be able to strategize and try to think of ways to address those issues.
One other one, the gut is another one, right? We have a lot of nerve endings there, right? And without anybody writing any science books telling us about nerve endings in the gut, we already kind of know. Okay, we've been writing and talking about it as though we felt things in our gut for a long time, right? We've been talking this way in different traditions and different cultures since forever. And you now can stand there in your living room or lay down there on your couch and know about feeling butterflies in your stomach. Okay, so one of the aspects, because it relates to fitness, that really kind of helped me in terms of this kind of not just understanding but picturing and really seeing where the source of the signals are coming, is to know that when you eat certain things, you're going to develop a certain kind of gut biome, and it's almost like creating a constituency, and that constituency is going to have a vote the next time you're hungry, and they're going to want what they want, right? So if you feed the pasta constituency in your stomach, right, there is the gut biome is they're gonna ask for pasta next time. Okay, and now I'm oversimplifying things, obviously. Okay, but generally speaking, the big differentiation tends to be on the carb end, especially like quick sugars versus not. And if you develop this gut biome, it's literally sending signals to your brain, say, we need more pasta stat, even though the energy, nothing in you're not in calorie deficit or anything like that. There is no reason. Your stomach's actually full. You can actually check your stuff. You can actually take a drink of water, be like, you know what? Actually, I'm full right now. As a matter of fact, I just had a bowl of pasta an hour ago. Okay, so what is telling me that I actually need more pasta? It's that gut biome. And I think that for me, that particular one, just knowing It's those guys down there that I created, by the way. So it's not like, and the thing is, it's you. It's your fault. You create them, and then now you got to fight the battle of flushing them away, killing them, and now you have the other ones that are not, so they're not bothering you every day. But Dr. Thunder, let's talk a little bit about discipline. People are saying, okay, cool, I got to do my 9 to 5, I got to work hard, and I'm looking at this fitness thing as a way of maybe augmenting my success, which I would tell you to not to look at that way, as you should look at it as one thing. Because when you really understand it, you can't help but look at it as one thing, because your happiness, okay, to use that word, frivolous word, your happiness is directly tied to it. But people are working 9 to 5 and they have to fit in this gym thing. Do you have any pointers there, any tips? And perhaps you could tell us of times when you've struggled with it. Like, you may be struggling as a result of injury, or you may be struggling as a result of, I just got slammed, there's the jazz festival of the blah blah blah, I can't fit it in. How do you go around these kinds of things? What's some of the struggles, and how do you overcome these struggles with regards to scheduling and whatnot?
So I've been on about I've been a few times, but I've had a lot of discomfort associated with going. Probably the last 3 months have been pretty sketchy for me. And there was a lot of things sort of collaborating against me. And my schedule has been really ridiculous. And so that's been part of it. My sleeping hasn't been as good. And that's something I have to be really careful about, because I have had struggles in the past sleeping. And I don't want that to return, because that was a very, probably the worst experience of my life. It was over a period of a period of a month and a half, where I simply did not sleep. But I finally kind of shocked my system out of that, and my sleeping has actually been good. It's just I haven't been able to sleep as much because I have so much stuff to do. All right. But okay, so all of that stuff, because in life happens, and that's sometimes what happens. You have a new baby. I'm sure that has to have had some kind of impact on probably your sleeping, the way that you're interacting with your wife, comfort level with certain things. Oh, now here's something else I didn't expect I had to do, and that's getting in the way of this other thing, so there's all those kinds of things. An uptick with your job. You've actually even been out of the country, and I know you're about to go again for a couple months or something, and of course that would have, of course, an impact on it. Touring musicians have a hard time staying consistent in the gym. I know a few cases where guys figured something out that they could do consistently. I interviewed Danny Janklow, he's a great saxophonist, last night, and that was a great interview, great conversation. But I'm interviewing Tony DeSere, a great singer, songwriter. He's like a modern day Frank Sinatra. Super talented, does a lot of stuff Frank couldn't do, though. He's a great piano player. And the story about that, I'll get around to the point, but the story about that is I played with Tony with an orchestra. That was one of the last gigs that I did before the pandemic started. So it was like February 14th. It was Valentine's Day. And that was when I met him. And then I interviewed him way back when. This will be the second time that I'm interviewing him. But it kind of came full circle, because one of the bands that I play with, a different band, he came in. He was the artist, the featured artist with them. And that was a couple weeks ago, right? So anyhow, we were having a conversation, and he's a fit guy. We were having a conversation. He was talking about how he started doing push-ups, a certain number of push-ups. And that was something when he's on the road or at home or whatever it is, he can always do that. So calisthenics can be something that can sort of at least get you through. And maybe really you want to do weight training, but you were probably familiar with the stories about Herschel Walker, who never really was in the weight room. All he did was calisthenics, push-ups, sit-ups, all other things, pull-ups. He did all the sort of body weight stuff, and this dude was superhuman, and still is. So there's all kinds of things that you can do now. That whole thing about just get back in as soon as you can. Don't beat yourself up. Okay, you had a bad last month or something. Just try to get in there and get moving. I think there's some truth to that. Not because I believe in momentum, but because you're never going to be able to do something in an ideal fashion. Stuff is always going to go different than you want it to. Just accept that and be okay with that, and just get started, get yourself started. And then, doesn't mean that you're going to want to go the next day, but you might like the way that you feel when you went the first time. Remember what it feels like to get your blood moving, your heart rate up and like that. And possibly that could be a motivation for you to go the next day. Set a schedule, figure out what your body rhythm is. I know for me now, I've had to sort of do this at a time when I don't have like a high biorhythm, which is in the morning. But for me, like a good time for me to go to the gym is around 11 a.m. But that's like almost that's almost always a no-go unless we're talking about the summer. That's like a no-go zone. I can't do it at that time. I'm always teaching at that time. So yeah, but I've said a bunch of stuff, but part of it is just about getting yourself going again. The whole thing, take it easy, go slow first. I don't know if you have to take it easy or go slow first. I think as long as you're adequately warmed up and you're stretching, you're doing the things that you need to do to prevent injury, go all out.
Yeah, like I typically, for example, so you put many things on the table, right? One of them is this kind of doing body weight type stuff, not needing any implement. Maybe maximum thing you're going to need is a chair or something. In other words, I mentioned burpees earlier. You talked about this guy doing push-ups, right? So you don't need much for burpees. And when I haven't done burpees in a long time, I'm like, hey, boom, I'm just going to start doing burpees. I go all out. And then I notice, when I land, my ankles are a little wobbly, right? In other words, when I go all out, I don't nail it, right? But I'm going all out, and then I can see, okay, cool. Seems like ankle wobbly, certain kind of wobbliness in the arms when I come down here. The typical kind of things that you need to get in terms of your form being off. And then you focus on that, and next thing you know, you're doing burpees like, you're not 100%, but if you just focus on my ankles and these other things that you're noticing that are off, you get to where you were a lot quicker than you thought. Okay. Now, Dr. Thunder, that people are going to be like, hey, you guys are talking a bunch of smack. You guys are saying, yeah, if you're fit, you're going to have stamina and energy, and you're going to sleep better, and you're going to be more clear. You're going to have better ideas. Okay. And sure, we admitted too that there's a halo effect and all that kind of stuff. But here's what some people are going to say. When some people see the positive correlation between good health and higher income, that persons, who earn more tend to have less disease, and then the poor disease-ridden masses are down there suffering, you see where they're going to come, right? They're going to say, no, that look, it's because they're poor. That's why they're suffering. They're disease-ridden. Okay, sure, it's not the food deserts, but it's something else about them being poor that is making them disease-ridden and unhealthy, okay? In the United States, is there any place for that argument? Okay, let's at least try to look at it. Again, and we have to place it in the United States, given what we know about access to food, what we know about the poverty rate, what we know about what the floor is when it comes to the economy, right? What the basic safety net is. So poor health and higher rates of disease associated with lower income, is this an economic problem fundamentally? In other words, they need higher income and then the problem will get solved, or they need to get better behavior.
Better behavior always trumps more money, because if you think about the whole, you know, you have you can't make it you can't make enough money to outpace bad habits. Put it that way. You know, you're always going to need more money. You're always going to need more. You're always going to need more. So that whole sort of adequately managing the stuff that you've been given. I mean, there's a principle in the Bible about this, right? You know, faithful in the little things, and you know, all of that kind of thing, because that's the way that work. And we did a show and we were talking about this idea of, you know, when I make it and I have you know, I'm independently wealthy, that's when I'll start, you know, speaking up. You know, that's when I'll grow a pair. That's when I'll, you know, start being. No, you won't. You'll do the same thing that you were doing all along. And I would argue that you probably wouldn't get to that level because you haven't developed the fundamental you know, qualities necessary to, you know, propel you. So
that so you're saying behavior. We have down there in the chat A Hill agreeing with you, same behavior. Okay, if we go back to our poll, okay, which I will now officially end since we have 34 people that are agreeing at the 88% rate, okay, that indeed fitness helps them make more money. Okay, so we'll officially end that poll now. Now, we're not we're not going to let you off the hook yet with regards to the poor being underserved and therefore having these negative health consequences. Okay, I'm going to re-ask the question and say, so you're saying, okay, in the you know, ABC interview, or was it BBC? Sorry. So what you're saying is this, that it is like 80% behavior or 99% behavior, that there really isn't anything you can do, okay? Or there isn't anything that's effective or that makes sense, or that it's just going to be wasted. You're throwing good money after bad. If you keep on, and continuing of any programs in this direction is just going that sunk cost fallacy or doubling down since you already started something, right? That there really isn't anything that I can. Some people, for example, they'll throw out, well, how about the education programs? Some say that, right? Do you have any space in your heart for teaching these people about their vegetables, teaching them about running, teaching them about and all those other kinds of things, that, hey, you know what? It's not their fault that sure grandma and ma do nothing but serve us pizza bites, okay, and fish sticks. Never seen anything else. So how can either civil society or the government so remove that as a government program? Okay, now I'm trying to, you have more power and you're going to make it happen either through civil society, non-governmental organizations, or the government as a combination. But is there anything that they can do education wise to get people to be more healthy so that they can get more wealthy?
No.
Oh, I didn't succeed. I tried to
so. Okay. Yeah, I don't think so, because it would be one thing if we didn't have, you know, access to so much information. Every person, poor people, homeless people, have more access to information than at any point in time in history. You can go to a public library, get on the internet, search for anything that you want to, get any kind of information. I mean, there's podcasts, free information. There's, you know, all of the, I mean, just consider all of the great information that you can acquire on YouTube alone. Just there's so much stuff out there. It's not like, and shout out to Roxy Beckles, you can get on Roxy Beckles' channel and get all the information you need about fitness. Okay, it's
Roxy
free.
Beckles.
Okay.
So there's so much information in our hands again, and this is something I tend to agree with. Okay, and by the way, I have a kind of natural aversion to the "they didn't teach us" complaint. I find it to be full of BS. That there are many places that this shows up. You know that they didn't teach us in school trope, right? They didn't teach us in the school this. They didn't teach us in school that. They should teach us in school this. They should teach us that. They should teach us about money. They should. It's like, no, you don't. No, they don't. Number one, as you just said, information is free out there. Number two, school is not there to tell you everything about how to walk and chew gum, right? That's why you actually out there in the world walking and chewing gum. You're supposed to be out there learning from the real world. School is meant to augment, give you some basic things so that you can transact within the systems that we've created. So generally speaking, when people start talking about what they should have learned in school, I always, and then especially when they do it in a cultural form, like, hey, our culture will be better. Our people would behave better if only they were taught X in school. It's like, dude, you're here on YouTube screaming X from the top of your lungs, as X is not a secret, right? This X thing that you're saying they don't teach in school, that'll make everything better. Okay, it's not a big secret. You know it. You're screaming it every panel you go to, and you're saying that, oh, if only it was in third grade, fitted in between, you know, the pizza lunch that you had and some other thing you weren't paying attention to. Okay, and if they just put it in there, if it was only in there, my life would have been altogether different. So I tend to agree with you on that. Okay, now it turns out, more statistics, okay, that 88%, okay, of self-made millionaires, okay, read. And here's another one, okay, and this is what I want you to get a reaction to, because the read one I always kind of found a little like funny. Also, among CEOs, okay, 45 minutes every day, okay, basically the extreme busy executive CEOs found fit in 45 minutes a day of exercise. I'm not sure which particular percentage of them, but it seems like a particularly high percentage, higher than the average person, are fitting in exercise. But then they do the read one. Now, the read one is slightly tangential, but why do you think they're emphasizing this read thing? Now, a few things you just stayed on the table is that whenever people talk about the habits of a rich person or a CEO, part of it is just marketing and branding. You know, going up to some millionaire and saying, what is your daily routine? You know, I don't know. I wake up, scratch my butt, left cheek.
Right. I pat my
left cheek.
I pat my my goose that laid the golden egg. You know.
There you go. And I mean, so that's one aspect of it. There's always a little bit of marketing there, both from the journalism side. Journalism needs something to write, so they go asking people crap. And then people will get asking these people crap, so they're gonna come up with stuff to say, like, you know what? Hey, it's that coffee with the omega-4 oils that make it such that the slow release of the caffeine. That's how I made my billions. But anyways, on the reading side, have you heard this stat before about these CEOs and these self-made millionaires reading a lot? And what do you think that's about?
I don't know. Maybe it's yeah, that is interesting. Because it seems to me that there's, unless you're talking about reading information specific to your discipline, and maybe that's what we're talking about.
I'm sure they're reading a whole lot of nonfiction. Okay. They're probably, especially the higher up they are, they're going to be reading geopolitical stuff, right? Let's say, you know, the latest book on Asian affairs, the latest book on China, whatever it may be. So they're going to be reading those kinds of things because it's quite pertinent to what they do. So that's already is going to put them at a level where they're consuming more information, right? Especially when it's nonfiction. And then the daily silly reports on Bloomberg or Forbes. You think that's what they're reading?
Yeah. So this is interesting. I think the reading thing would be directly related to is probably directly related to what they do, and then therefore gives them a certain kind of advantage, being able to sort of develop the ability to predict certain movements in the market, and certain ways that their company can change and adapt and grow. So I would, so that makes sense. And, thinking about, conversations I've had with my dad had, told me, and he told me this, when I was a kid, even. He says he doesn't read fiction. All of his reading has been nonfiction. All of it. And, my dad was, he's MBA, and he was a high-ranking bureaucrat, state government, in Michigan for a long time. Hired hundreds and hundreds of people and loaned billions of dollars to nonprofits. That was, part of his job. That was his job. And so it was very important that he understood what was going on. And so all of his reading was sort of necessary reading. And then even beyond that, and all the books that he suggested to me that I read, there's, Moby Dick wasn't one of the offerings. It's always been nonfiction. And I have taken that's the way that I approach reading also. And I'm going to say something that, somebody could clip me and make me look a little suspect by me saying this, but I don't know how much I really like reading.
Me neither. No. I know. The practical reasons why I don't like reading, eyesight being number one. And then there's this chicken and egg thing that happened after that, where I don't know if my ears are just naturally good, or I had to compensate because of eyesight to be very good with hearing things. By hearing, I mean listening. And now it also turns out that my ears are good musically. That's a separate question. Okay, I don't think that's what's making me listen to the teacher well, because I got good hearing. Okay, but I got used to listen to what the person says, jot things down, go back, reformulate them. Okay, just because that's what I had to do. And now what I do a lot is audiobooks, right? So
yeah, me too.
I do audiobooks. I'm listening to tons and tons of C-SPAN, just raw content. I'm listening to like Supreme Court arguments in the background while I work. Just constant tons and tons of stuff. And this, I think, is what, and I've noticed the same thing amongst a lot of successful people, I would say, that they're always telling me something that, that it may be some conspiracy theory book that, about the builder, about the banks or something like that. But they always got something that they're kind of reading outside of also basic information that they need to read. But they're reading some other nonfiction thing out there. What's the latest one? The Creature from Jackal Island, about the founding of the central bank. Okay, the founding of the central bank, which is this private institution of individual corporations, which calls themselves federal, but it's not really federal. And what and then you're like, it's almost like when you do something so blatantly crazy and it's right in the center of everybody, but nobody wants to talk about it, like taking a giant dump in the middle of the room when everyone's going to ignore that this private group, which is like a trade union, of banks, is controlling the currency flow in the United States. But I guess someone has to do it.
Right.
Somebody has to do it. Okay. So
doubling down on your point, or reiterating it another way. Had lots of audiobooks, lots of text readers. So there'll be an article. I'm highlighting the article. All right, Samantha, read it to me. Samantha's one of the default Apple voices, by the way. So stuff like that. When I was working on my doctorate, I was recording all of the lectures, and since it was a 2-hour drive each way, in the car, I would listen back to the lecture, particularly right before I was heading back into the same class, a couple days later. So, on the drive in, I'm listening to a couple of hours of lectures for the first 2 classes or whatever. Then I get into those classes and it's like everything's fresh. It's amazing. And that definitely is, I'm sure people are probably not surprised as a musician that my preferred method of learning is oral. But, I get to the point where I'm listening to stuff, and I remember inconsequential events that occurred. So, I'm recording these lectures and I'm like, you know what? A chair is about to squeak across the floor right now. Squeak. Somebody is going to leave right now to go to, and this is just based on audio. I'm not watching video. It's based on audio. Somebody's about to close the door or leave. Somebody raises their hand and asks, a question right now, oh yeah, that's right. It was a question about this, this particular thing, so all of that stuff comes back and it's as if I'm sitting there in the room, so the oral thing I think can be quite powerful. And yes, shady. Yes, shady.
Now, there's another thing that when it comes to the habits, okay, the lifestyle habits and of success, of high productivity, of people whom live heroic lives in some way, shape, or form. Okay, and you pick your hero, pick your heroic path, and you're gonna find certain things correlated, and they're gonna be healthy, and you're not gonna be too surprised from an Aristotelian virtue ethic point of view. If you show a good man, better be a fucking fit man. I'd have cussed to it too. It's like, Aristotle were like, well, yes, obviously, that this is what the whole thing. Like, do we need to debate? It's an animal after all. Okay, I mean, give me a nice healthy animal, and then we could talk about all the other virtues, and also no shade to Aristotle in the sense that he wasn't just do certain just animalistic, show me, look down to earth, empirical, just purely what does a good man look like type stuff. He also incorporated what he called the great souled man, which is basically somebody who appreciates the useless things, meaning like music, for example, Dr. Thunder. And I like that Aristotle emphasized these are the useless things. It clearly clarifies for you what the realm of the aesthetics is, that they're useless and they have a whole importance onto themselves. Art doesn't have to explain itself. But anyways, let's not get too far. We're still talking about these habits. And one of the things that Dan Pena says, okay, no, you don't have to know who Dan Pena is, but he's one of these crazy people out there yelling at people in order to motivate them. Drill sergeant style. He says, Steve Jobs is not hanging out. Elon Musk is not hanging out, quote unquote, that these top performers don't hang out, right? Like they don't go to the pub with the buddies. They don't go see the game, right? Oh, I'm going to go see the game. They don't, they don't do that. Is this true? Okay. And what are your thoughts about that? Do you suspect that it is true that these people don't, quote unquote, hang out at the pub? You're not going to see them watching the game. They're not, Netflixing or whatever. And what is it true? And what do you think about it?
Well, I Netflix, but I'm doing something else as I'm Netflixing, or I'm winding down to go to sleep. But I'm also like taking in information, and it's like it's interesting. Sometimes I have the TV on, plus I'm watching like a YouTube live stream at the same time. So there's other things that are going on at the same time, or I'm next Netflixing, but on the treadmill, or I'm working out or something. So you know, my wife, um, she doesn't complain about this as much because I think she probably perceived that it was a losing battle. But often I have like one ear in, and my phone's in my pocket, but I'm listening to stuff, and I have one ear in so that I can still hear, in case somebody's requesting me to do something. And so I know that probably gets old.
I do
But
that too.
yeah, but it's just like, I'm an information junkie. I want to get as much information as possible. But like wasting time doing stuff that is not even giving you any information. If you're going to watch something, maybe watch something that is not just look, I consume art. I love music. I love
Mhm.
art. But I will be honest, I don't really listen for pleasure. That's not what I do. I haven't listened. I don't think I've ever listened for pleasure. I mean, I've been affected by stuff that I've listened to before, experiencing a certain exhilaration or a certain kind of wow or awe. But I do not listen for pleasure. I listen with a purpose. I'm dissecting the music as I'm listening to it.
Mhm.
And often is the case that I'm learning the music for church, or I'm learning the music for a gig that I have, or I'm listening back to one of my performances in a critical way. I'm listening to students in a critical mode. So I don't really listen for pleasure. And in the same way, I'm kind of not really listening for pleasure for information. It's kind of like, I want to have this information. I'm doing live streams frequently, and I want to be able to come up with topics easily. I don't really struggle to come up with topics. There's a billion ideas for topics. I have like a list of stuff that I jot down every once in a while. But even if I didn't do that, out of thin air, I could just invent topics that I think would be pretty good topics for shows, because I'm taking in so much information. It's and I think it's a great benefit of being a person that does that.
Mhm.
Especially
Yeah.
with what it is that I do.
Yeah. I do the same thing. I've learned not to justify it though, because then it becomes assailable. If I justify it and say it is because it is, oh, here are the benefits of it, then it's now on the table for negotiation. But if it's just, I have to do this. If
Mm,
it's because we all have our unconditionals and our conditionals, right? Uh,
yeah.
there's something, maybe want to hide this one in the unconditional, because what I'm telling you, Dr. Thunder, is you're not doing it for so you can come up with topics. You couldn't help but just keep receiving information. You couldn't help
Right,
it.
right.
Okay?
That's right. It is a benefit, a natural benefit from it is a byproduct from something that I'm wired to do already.
Mhm, mhm,
That's just
mhm.
who I am. It's what I am. And
There you go.
I'm in this sort of constant state of reinventing myself, of, taking in stuff and making adjustments to things, and even the way that I view the world. I'm trying to, get closer and closer to uh having an understanding, an actual interaction with uh not just with the true nature of things.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
you know
Speaking of taking in good information and good content, what you got on Thursday, Dr. Thunder, on Thunder's Thoughts
all
with
right,
yourself
I do
and
have
Dr.
something coming.
Doug?
Yeah, let's see here, what have I got? Let me see. Uh-oh. Okay, there we go. Okay, there it is. Okay. So here I can change this now. So I'll show you the thumbnail I have on tap here. So yeah, the show is here's why arranged marriage would never work in the black community. And this is after this sort of topic is I have been watching Married at First Sight. Now I usually don't like reality TV shows.
Well, it's an Indian. It's based on Guptar and Ramandeep.
No. What it is actually it is Married at First Sight it's in America. They're in their 10th they're in their 14th season now, but Netflix released their 10th season. It's a Lifetime series. Mm-hmm. And I watched that whole season. It was like, I don't know, 17 episodes or something, and they were all like hour and 20 minute long. And it's fascinating because it's really like a research project. That's really what the show is. Because as it suggests, they do not meet each other until they're at the altar. Mm-hmm. And then they have these series of, ways that they interact. So they're for 2 weeks they're on a honeymoon. Then for, and then they get back into, reality. They're there for another 4 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever it is. And they're frequently interacting with the other couples that are part of this. For season 10, there were 5 couples. 2 of the couples were black. There were 1, 2, and I guess the other 3 couples were white couples. Of the couples, only 1 survived and decided to stay married, because it's a legal marriage. It's an actual marriage. So at week 8, they have to decide if they're going to get divorced or if they're going to stay together. And the 2 black couples, for all kinds of dysfunctional reasons, but which for reasons that are ubiquitous in the black community, family structure, just the way that they interacted with each other, the kind of foolishness that they allowed to sort of override basic stuff. Look, each one of these couples, experts put them together based on actual important kind of qualities, things that would be compatible and things that would actually be important, but they can't get out of the way of themselves. And it's amazing, but only 1 couple stays married, and it right from the beginning who it's likely going to be. And they had the same situation as everyone else. So it just caused me to think, and actually one of the couples that didn't make it is actually pictured on the thumbnail. It's the black couple there. They didn't make it. But it's interesting, the kind of issues that they had, and a lot of the stuff that we, frequently gets discussed in, the black manosphere and stuff about just interacting and the kind of things that are valued and all that kind of stuff. One of the couples had an issue with the girl, who was very attractive, black woman, very, very attractive. She had a big social media following, and she's like posting all the time, taking pictures of her food and stuff like this. So it's this very interesting kind of issues that they have. And so I wanted to do a show on the topic. And of course, the other picture is, that's more of sort of the cultural, setting usually for arranged marriages these days, And so I just wanted to kind of contrast that. And so Anyhow,
Yeah,
so that's the name of the show. Here's why arranged marriage would never work in the black community.
yeah. A lot of Indians. I mean, the arranged marriage thing is quite prevalent in India, such that when two Indian men meet each other, I'm told, right? And you just met each other, and no, we ride the bicycle every weekend here and stop at this Starbucks together. Blah blah blah. That couple of minutes into the conversation, you're gonna ask, was it? Did you have an arranged marriage or right? Yeah, kind of thing. It's almost like it's like a thing. Like, oh, we both have. You see, they're both married. Okay, it's like, oh, was your marriage arranged or was it? They call it arranged marriage or love marriage. That's what they call it, right? So it's
Right.
so much of a thing that it's a standard question that they ask each other, which is like, is it arranged or not? And I was having a conversation about it like recently when we were talking about the ceremonies, how they have these 15,000 ceremonies, right? The Indians do, and it's similar to the Africans as well. And we're talking about arranged marriages and how the benefits of them and also the possibility of it working in the United States. But you're going to be talking about the black community as well. We're going to be doing Case Closed on Sunday on this channel, right?
Yes. Yes.
Also,
Yes.
yes.
On your channel, man. And there's a swirling list of topics to consider. There's so much stuff going on. Maybe we'll do a show on the Johnny Depp thing. That's an
That's been a
actual
good
case.
one that
could
has
be-
been kept on giving with lots of footage, lots of things to react to and everything. So that is a
Yeah.
good one. Yeah,
and,
this
and,
is
a,
Mhm.
and a beautiful woman taking a dump in the bed. That's always great.
Good times. So, and then, okay, well, tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow, that is 5:45 Pacific time, which is 8:45 Eastern time. My math serves me correctly. I'm going to be here with Joan. And then on Thursday, I'm going to be here with Aitois. We're going to be looking at some economic topics and whatnot. Okay. And then Sunday, Case Closed. And then back again Tuesday, 9:30 Eastern time, as usual, getting ish done with Ike and Dr. Thunder. So I think that we have taken this picture apart here. We've looked at all the different aspects of how rich equals fit and how fit equals rich. And at the end of the day, it seems to be all about behavior. It's not a question that I just got to give you more education and I got to tell you to eat more vegetables and this, hence your life is going to be better and blah, blah, blah. No, people whom are driven to succeed are likely to be driven to succeed on both these fronts, the economic front and then also on the health front. Okay, but also we know basic, simple stuff. The bottom of the pyramid is the body. You're going to have more stamina. You're going to have more energy. Okay, you're going to sleep better. You're going to be healthier. It's going to give you more clarity. Also, externally, you're going to look good. Anyways, there is no excuse as to why you shouldn't. Okay, and by the way, speaking of falling off the wagon or falling on the wagon, whatever it may be, I'm trying to get back on my fitness game. Doing my intermittent fasting more and the ketosis and all that stuff I was mentioning earlier. And it's been a journey. I still got realistically about 30 pounds, okay, to shed. But for the smaller people out there, 30 pounds is not much to people like myself and Dr. Thunder, right? Because when you say 30 pounds, some people are like, oh, that's a lot. But when you're over 6 feet, 30 pounds is,
Right.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank for those whom watched quietly and those who participated in the chat. And until next time, peace. We are gone.
in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity, tomorrow never certain. What was behind the curtain? The face of evil smirking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble from LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make me get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make me get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest and the righteous in your corners.